We'd like to call to order this regular City Council meeting of May 29th, 2018. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lisa, let the roll call show that everyone is present. And we will move on to the approval of minutes of May 14th, 2018. Councilmember Kennedy.
On page 11, about the fourth paragraph down, it says, begins the sentence, Councilmember Parisian noted, and it comes down through, but she would never think to hold, it says her back, it should be him back. The end of that sentence. That's all I have.
Councilmember Parisian.
Good evening, Lisa. I have on page 12, hold on a second, let me get there. About halfway through the page, Councilmember Parisian stated she received some feedback. I think the word should be over, because about doesn't quite fit the sentence. Received some feedback over the weekend instead of about the weekend. Thank you.
I've got a couple.
Councilmember Kibble.
Page 2, about two-thirds of the way down, Kibble stated the summer rate has come up many times. If it's wet in summer, they don't pay more. If it's dry, they don't pay more, except the excess water usage, not not the additional sewage, and just discount or discard the rest of that sentence. And also on page 8, in that first paragraph, it says the first word is forced main, then it says HRC was, and we should insert not involved. That had the exact opposite meaning without that. That's all I had. Thank you.
Anyone else with anything on the minutes?
I move the agenda as amended.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Move on to the approval of tonight's agenda.
Bills?
What's that?
Bills?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Approval of the bills, none. So approval of tonight's agenda.
I'll move the agenda.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? At this time, we'll welcome public comment. Please state your name and address.
Move orderly.
Okay. No public comment this evening. We'll move on to discussion of downtown. Mr. Donahue.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'll make it brief. I got a couple items, though, to highlight. You have the report, which Lloyd sent to you. A couple items. The Corner Cafe has reopened as of yesterday under the new ownership. That was their soft opening beginning, and they hope to have a grand opening late in June. The improvements to the expanded area to the farmers market are continuing. The shed is in place. It still needs to be roofed, final coat of paint, and we're going to be adding flowers to that area and picnic tables and new vendors. 2 more vendor spaces will be in that area. So when you look at it now, you'll see the chain. And I think it cleaned up really nice and it has improved that area. We met with a film company this past week that will be shooting individual stores. It's kind of a pay-to-play program, but because we're coordinating it, the DDA and the city, at no cost, get a combined video of all those shoots that we can put on our website. So that is planned for late summer to be available. And then something really exciting, which I attached more info to the report, is that we're going to be joining the big leagues of how to advertise downtown with one additional co-op advertising piece. Really, it'll be an insert in the Lyon today, and then it'll be reprinted and available individually in the stores. It's a holiday gift guide that is on a par with Rochester and Birmingham. And I think we have the rates low enough. We've discussed it with some local businesses. I think we have the minimum 20 to follow the Rochester example, which you see. And then I think we'll have another 20 for a reduced rate for the 20 gift ideas. So I think it's just going to be really cool to see that. Why not? Why don't we do something on a par of Rochester and Birmingham? So can't wait for that to happen. Proof is in the pudding. So when it's done, we want it out before the November Ladies' Night. And then it'll be open and available through the holidays. That's all I have. Any questions? Yes?
As to the Corner Cafe, is there a new name for it, or?
The official name of the previous business was the Lafayette Corner Cafe with one F in cafe. The official new name is the Corner Cafe, two F's in cafe. So it is officially the Corner Cafe, although I think 90% of the people always refer to it as Corner Cafe.
And do you have the hours?
The hours are 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. daily, 7 days a week.
That's great.
I'll say something.
Councilmember Richards?
Thank you.
I stopped by there on my cruise and talked to the lady that was painting the windows. And we had a discussion about her painting the windows. It looks very nice. And she's an art instructor or something somewhere, okay? And told her that if you have a business card, leave it at City Hall, and maybe some other people will want you to paint their windows also, because she did such a nice job. And I asked her when they're opening up, and she says, well, they're open today, but she thought they opened up the first time during the parade, but there's nobody. I didn't see anybody in the place. Okay, but she said they were open. Okay, just thought I'd add that to you.
Yeah. Actually, you're right. Yesterday during the parade was their first actual day open.
Yeah.
They were unofficially open for 3 days, giving away product and delivering coffee all through downtown to the churches. Really? So I think they really know how to market.
Yeah.
I think they're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Great. Anyone with anything else for Bob? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
We'll move on to old business number 1, public hearing budget, annual budget for fiscal year 2018-2019. Consider approval of millage rate resolution for fiscal year 2018-2019.
Mr. Mayor,
Tim.
just to remind you, you're going to need to open and close the public hearing on that.
Okay.
You can decide whether you have any type of presentation or discussion beforehand or after the hearing.
So do I need to just read this verbatim to open it up?
No, it's just a public hearing for public comment on the
Public
proposed
comment.
budget.
All right, so at this time, we'll open up the floor for public comment on anything in regards to the annual budget for the fiscal year 2018 and 2019.
Come on, people, come on. Somebody say something.
Do you need the time read into the record for the hearing?
You don't need to, but it's a good practice.
Sorry. Let the timestamp show the floor was opened at 7:39 p.m. And with nobody stepping up to the microphone, we will
Close the public hearing.
close the
Open meeting, yeah.
open meeting,
The public hearing.
public hearing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Glenn.
Yep.
Public hearing, yeah.
Do we need a timestamp for that too? We'll just let it go a minute.
Yep.
We'll call it 7:40. So now do we just do we move on to bullet point A here? Okay. Consider approval of millage rate resolution for the fiscal year 2018-2019. Thank you, Tim. Does anyone have anything?
Well, I mean, everything seems to have been attended to, so do we need to read this or just reference it, the resolution?
That's really up to you. It's not mandatory that you read it. It's part of the packet. It's made public.
Yeah, it's in
You may want
public
to
document.
go through and identify what the various mills are for each line item in the resolution. It's up to you. It really is. There's no magic to it.
I'll do it.
Okay,
Yeah, would you?
Okay, so the four components of the millage at the rate of 11.4958 mils per thousand of valuation for the general fund operation, at the rate of 3.0000 mils per $1,000 of valuation for wastewater general obligation funds for wastewater treatment, and at the rate of 0.500 mils per $1,000 of valuation for capital improvement fund, and finally at the rate of 0.2400 mils per $1,000 of valuation for the 1999 Building Authority land acquisition.
just a correction that it's actually the wastewater general obligation bonds for number 2.
Okay. You want to read the rest of this?
Well, I think
Okay,
it's
we'll read it.
worth a discussion that there is an additional non-city millage for the district library as well.
Okay. Resolve further that due to the May 2nd, 1984 election, whereby the library became a free-standing and district library for all purposes, including the levy of 1.44569, and the overall levy for the city will be 16.6707 mils, of which 15.2338 mils will be used for city operation and debt. Resolve further that after spreading on the assessment roll, the amount is as applied to be raised by the general ad valorem tax, the assessor certify and deliver the same to the city treasurer, and the city clerk be authorized to attach her warrant thereto, directing and requiring the city treasurer to collect the same as provided by the city charter. Resolve further that all installments reported to the city treasurer as delinquent on special assessment and other charges, together with interest due thereon, as provided in section 7.17 of the city charter, unpaid charges for water consumption and water tap installation, as provided in chapter 24 of the South Lyon City Code, be assessed against the properties benefited and included in the 2018 tax roll. Resolve further that the millage for the entire fiscal year 2018 to 2019 budget not to exceed 15.2338 mils. I would make the motion to approve the 2018-2019 proposed budget and acknowledging the 2019-2020 and 2020-2021 projected budgets as submitted.
I support.
Do we do a roll call on this, Lisa?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, I move we approve the annual budget of fiscal year 2018-2019.
Wait a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye. No.
Motion passes. Old business number 2, correct now?
Moving on.
Consider resolution establishing rules of conduct for public comment at the city council meetings. Old business item 2, the recommendation, approve the resolution adopting rules of conduct for public comment at the city council meetings.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Happy to be back. I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you'd like a brief overview of the resolution.
I think that'd be great. We appreciate you having you back to go over this. Thank you.
Great. Well, happy to be here. And I thank you for the opportunity to put this together based on what was really a wonderful meeting back in April. And as I put this together, I think if you look at it, you'll see a little bit of each of you inside of it. The suggestions that were tossed around during the special meeting all really worked well together. And so what I've done is taken the general structure that we started the meeting off with Council Member Kennedy proposing, and as each of you added to it and adjusted it. So the idea of now implementing a 2 public comment period structure, one at the start of the meeting, one at the end, a 2-minute time limit for those comments that can relate to agenda or non-agenda items as the key structure, and then providing waiver procedures. And if you look at the resolution, a lot of the length comes from the waiver procedures, because anytime we are potentially granting exceptions to rules, we want to make sure that the discretion for granting those exceptions is very clearly delineated, so that you're not accused of behaving arbitrarily, especially since we've got both First and 14th Amendment concerns involved here, and to the extent they're enforced, potentially criminal arrest issues as well. So you definitely want to make sure you're treading carefully. And much of the discussion of waivers in the April meeting focused on the time limit waiver, and I've incorporated your suggestions to that extent. So any of the things that were talked about, be it whether the presenter should have known that the presentation was going to be longer than 2 minutes, the types of things are, whether they're repeating the same things, the length of the agenda, all those things could be considerations. No one determinative, but each one gives you a basis for potentially denying the waiver. Then there was the public comment period waiver. So if somebody wanted to speak in front of the council at a time other than a public comment period, there wasn't as much discussion on that waiver specifically. And so I have taken some liberties in filling in some of that discussion, but I was guided by your overall desire to grant those waivers sparingly, to make it a council vote issue, and to make it focused on gathering information. So I know some of the thought was that you might have somebody in particular who you want to invite to the council, or somebody happens to be in the audience who has expertise to share. I think my main concern is that it's not looking like you're picking and choosing a preferred viewpoint, and so I put in some protections there. If there happens to be an equally qualified person who wants to offer an opposing viewpoint, that presumably you would end up offering that person the opportunity to speak to. I think that would be your wisest course of action. And similarly, throughout, you'll see various qualifications about not focusing on the content. So not asking a person before they're asking for a time waiver, what are you going to talk about? There was some spirited discussion, I remember, in April about talking about, say, businesses in the city and trying not to be too critical and things like that. And I think we kind of reached the understanding that obviously we can't directly control that. If somebody wants to come up here for 2 minutes and criticize something going on in the city, whoever the target of that may be, they certainly have the right to do that. But the rules as I've designed them are really focused on the civility of the comments, making sure we're not causing any sort of disorder in the chamber, certainly nothing threatening. And you can see as things potentially escalate, you've got remedies to deal with that. And if they're coming up during an agenda item and not talking about things that are germane to the topic, then that's defeating the purpose of your waiver. And aside from that, there were a few holes I plugged. I was thinking about those obscure situations where a person would try to claim a 4-minute time period based on not talking during another one. And my sense from this council was that you want to treat each period individually. But of course, I'm happy to make any adjustments if that doesn't reflect your understanding. And then aside from the rules of decorum, I put in what is essentially a 3-step enforcement procedure, where my sense was that the council wanted to look at about a 2-warning option. So give the person a chance to calm down, sit down, and if not, one last warning, and then potentially more dramatic enforcement if necessary, which links to the new ordinance as well that's on your agenda for later this evening. But again, always giving you the discretion if things are really not going well to forego the extra warning. So it's all about the notice and making sure people are aware of why you're doing what you're doing.
Great, thank you, Matt. Councilmember Kivel, go ahead.
I'm grateful for the language that you provided us, because it does give us the protection to be able to know that we're constitutionally acting rather than just arbitrarily deciding who we like and don't like and things that we want to listen to and don't want to listen to. So this gives us a vehicle to be able to operate under those circumstances. So I'm really grateful for that. I actually would like to just simply make the motion that, what? You can comment on it after I make the motion. I mean, you're welcome to do that. To approve the resolution establishing rules of conduct for public comment at city council meetings, to provide policies, procedures, and regulations for public participation at city council meetings.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Discussion point, Councilmember Kennedy.
On page 3, section number 4, I think we're missing the word "so" from the second line that says "may only do from the podium," as opposed to "may only do so."
That is correct.
And fourth line up from the bottom, it says that the decision as to whether not, I think it's whether or not.
Yeah.
Or should we add it in there as well? Fourth line up?
Fourth line up. Or not, yes.
That's all I had.
Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You did an excellent job. I've been trying to get something like this passed for years. So I'm really thankful that somebody was able to put it together and finally deal with some of the issues that I think are important for the city as you move forward. So I'm definitely in favor of this, and thank you for your time so much for this. I'm just a very, very strong proponent of this. We desperately need this, so this is a good thing.
Councilmember Parisian.
Page 4, I just have a quick question to clarify. So if we're looking at Section 8, time limit, subsection A, timekeeper, time shall be kept by the mayor or his or her designee or by a timer.
Right.
In the event that the mayor is absent and we have Mayor Pro Tem step in, Mayor Pro Tem would then keep the time, or does it default to whomever the city clerk is?
Right. At the very end of the rules, item C6 on page 6, it says that any time the mayor is absent, any power of the mayor then vests in the Mayor Pro Tem or whoever it is that happens to be chairing the meeting in the event that the Mayor Pro Tem is also absent.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank
So
you.
we have a motion and a second. Do we have anyone else for discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Again.
New business number 1, approval of resignation of Judith Waters from the Housing Commission. Recommendation is to accept.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Kurtzwell.
I move to accept the resignation of Judith Waters from the Housing Commission with thanks, and I'll add a personal comment after it's been seconded, if it gets seconded.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I'd like
Aye.
to add a personal comment.
Oh,
discussion.
I'm sorry, Maggie.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I just wanted to give a personal thanks to Judy Waters. Judy had excellent credentials to sit on the Housing Commission. She came from a very, very strong and prestigious medical background out of the health industry, and she served very competently and with grace on the Housing Commission. And I just want to personally thank her because I know her, and thank her for everything that she did for the city on the commission, and it's regretful that she is resigning. So,
I got a question.
Councilmember Richards.
Mr. Mayor and the rest of the council, I'd like it to know how many people we've got left on the Housing Commission with 3 resignations in the last 2 meetings.
We have 2.
You have 2? Housing Commission members still active. That isn't enough for a quorum, as I understand it. If they do have a meeting.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
I'd just like to add a brief comment. Maybe the city attorney could assist council in moving forward in this matter. There may be some federal housing issues that may come to play as to whether other entities will take over the Housing Commission if we fail to populate it or have a quorum to do business. So I'm not quite sure what that potential minefield could be, but I think federal law probably does require a quorum at some point,
We can look into it.
Okay.
but I just don't know.
Thank you, Tim.
I would have to look.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of accepting the resignation of Judith Waters, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I'd also like to thank Judith for her time and commitment to the city, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
New business number 2 this evening, consider appointment of John Ward to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Councilmember Kurtzwell?
I move to appoint John Ward to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Is John in the crowd today?
No.
All right, well, we appreciate you stepping up and helping fill a void in that, the zoning board of appeals there. That's a big play, so thank you.
Absolutely.
Moving forward here, new business number 3 this evening, consider approval of Pumpkin Fest Run. Recommendation is obviously to approve this. Does anyone have anything?
You signed off.
Oh, Chief Collins, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I don't see Coach Smith here, but his request is the same as in prior years. The road closures are already taken care of due to the Pumpkin Fest parade. Coach Smith is cooperative with the police department in conducting the run and coordinating the event, so we do recommend approval.
Yeah, we all have known Coach Smith a long time, so that's great.
Councilman Walton.
Oh, sorry, Councilmember Walton, go ahead.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the application for the Pumpkin Fest Run at 9:55 a.m. on Saturday, September 29th, 2018.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. New business number 4 this evening, consider approval of the Cool Yule Parade and road closures. Recommendation, again, to approve the requests.
Mr. Mayor?
Chief Collins.
Same issue. I don't see Pastor Horlocker here. He was aware of the fact that the event would be on the agenda tonight. In fact, he requested specifically tonight. The road is the same, and police department is very much in support of this event.
Thank you.
I just wondered, is this the typical time that it would be conducted? Date, I mean, not time.
It's a Saturday in December. It's not too far off.
I thought it was usually a little bit later, but...
Probably just the way the Saturdays hit.
Yeah, okay. I was thinking that might not be early enough for it to be frothy cold. I guess
I'll say
a
something.
couple of those times.
You never know, it's Michigan.
Yeah. So
Councilmember Richards, go ahead.
I believe there was 1 year in there, we had our time limit, we started at 5:30 at night, and that's relatively too early. I'm glad we're going at 6 o'clock.
Yes, as to the time of day for the start of the parade, we have had issues in the past. With it being a lighted parade, we'd actually like the lights to show up.
Right,
Yeah, right.
makes sense. All right, can we get a motion on here? Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Yeah, I move to resolve that Lisa Deaton, the city clerk, is authorized to make application to the Road Commission for the County of Oakland on behalf of the city of South Lyon in the County of Oakland, Michigan, for the necessary permits to conduct the Cool Yule Parade on December 1st, 2018, from 6 p.m. to 7 o'clock p.m., and the related road closures: Whipple Street between Warren and Lafayette, Lafayette between Whipple and Dorothy Street, Dorothy Street between Lafayette Ann McMunn. And the balance of the language is found in the agenda note to new business number 4.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. New business number 5 this evening, consider acceptance of donation to Police Department. Recommendation is to accept. Chief Collins?
Of course, we would support the acceptance. A quick comment, Ms. Bonnie Piotr is, that's a maiden name as part of the Sweet family. They have several times, or many times in the past, sent a donation into the police department to thank us for taking good care of the community, and they tend to do so also in recognition of Police Week.
Very cool.
I'll make a comment.
Councilmember Richards?
Mrs. Bonnie Porteri, is that how I say it?
Piotr, I believe.
Piara?
Piotr?
Piara,
I could be
okay.
wrong.
Okay, she's been here at the council meetings before, other years when she's made a $100 donation to the police, you know, and we're all very grateful for her, and we all, many of us, not all of us, remember her father, Reynolds Sweet, who operated a Kroger store for many years, okay, and then worked for the South Lyon State Savings Bank, and then was elected to city council here for, I don't know, at least a decade, and died in office while he was here, because I went to the funeral. 6 police cars attended. Bonnie herself, just a personal note or a remembrance, she's a little bit older than I am. She was the homecoming queen of South Lyon, 1957. You know, just remember that. But she's a dedicated South Lyon in memory, you know, and her family has had a lot to do with historical research and reference. Anyway, thank you.
Do we got a motion?
I'll make the motion to accept the $100 donation from Miss Bonnie Petier and to thank her for her generosity.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? New business number 6, consider pre-authorization of backhoe purchase. Councilmember Kennedy.
I had this is, as everybody on the council is aware, this is a budgeted item for the upcoming fiscal year. I met with Ron at the DPW this past week to discuss this particular purchase. There is a bit of a sense of urgency in getting the approval so we can move forward on this at the start of the fiscal year so that we maintain the value that's been provided to us on the value of that existing backhoe from a trade-in perspective, and hope that we don't have any major issues between now and when we can take delivery of the new vehicle, and also the fact that it does help save some additional money, avoiding the couple $1,000s in the steel tariff as well. I think that was most everything that you wanted me to mention, Ron. Was there anything else?
That's the gist of it. Thank you.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for Ron? Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
My issue is more on the budgeting side, and I understand the purchase. I understand everything. The issue is the mechanics of the approval. You're asking for approval of a capital expenditure that's been approved in a budget that doesn't take effect until July 1st.
Correct.
So I don't feel comfortable making any action on an item that belongs in a budget that takes effect July 1st. Right. If you want to make this budget out of the present budget and hurry up and do an amendment to the budget so that it fits in this fiscal year, I wouldn't have a problem. But I think from a procedural standpoint, ethically, I just got a problem with voting on items that aren't even in a budget until 30 days from now.
We don't plan on taking possession until after July. This approval is just going to be able for us to lock down the current machine that's in their inventory. That's all we're looking for, so that after July 1, we can take possession and trade in our value of $18,000.
I personally am not going to take any action. I mean, that's just my ethics. I'm not going to take any action on any item in a budget that is not even in effect yet. I mean, I understand the dynamics, emergency, whatever, you know, whatever. I think there's ways to get around this. I think if you just tell them that, that approval will be coming in July, and just ask them to hold it. I think the city probably has an ability to put a small deposit down on it to hold it until the new budget comes into effect. I think there's ways to deal with it.
There is.
Then
We were pretty much just need like a letter of intent,
that's all you would need.
and they're willing to hold the machine for that. We just need to make sure that after July 1, giving them the letter of intent, that it's going to move forward and be paid for.
All you need to say is that it's a budgeted item. Here's our budget. It's a public document. Here's the line item for it. And that's it. But official action, I don't want to do that.
I'm willing to take anyone's lead, however we can make this happen. There's savings by taking the one, which is obviously a $2,000, which will increase in a tariff if that machine does leave their inventory, which is okay by me, whichever way it goes. It's just a potential savings as long as we can lock down this machine. And if we do have a catastrophic failure on the machine we have, obviously that would lower our trade-in value.
Right.
So that's why we're trying to go about it this way.
Councilmember Kivel.
Is there going to be a PO generated for this?
I spoke with the salesman. There's a couple ways we can go about it. We can lock it down with a PO. We can do a letter of intent.
Yeah, the letter makes more sense because the PO is actually, a financial vehicle. So
Right.
as long as we can actually do it with a narrative as opposed to some real financial instrument, this is something that's not new to this budget year. We've done this on a routine basis. Come budget time, you end up getting your orders in so that when it comes time to pay for it, you're into the new fiscal year, and none of the money from this year is going into that.
If it wasn't for the transmission issue on the current one and or the potential $2,000 savings, we would have had no issue trying to wait till July 1.
Right, but there's really no reason to prolong it any further. I mean, give them the notice of intent and no money is exchanged and we don't need to do anything further.
Right, and they're willing to do that so far. So
yeah. And secondarily, I want to point out my wife works at Michigan Caterpillar. She's in the engine division, not tractor, but nonetheless, I wanted to give you guys the opportunity, if you see a conflict of interest, I can recuse myself or not. So,
Councilmember Parisian, did you still have something?
I was just going to say I'm in favor of it. I think we should move this along, especially if it's in the best interest of the city and you're going to save $2,000. Why not? Let's move it.
It's just the current machine that's available.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I mean, if that machine leaves inventory, we're going to pay $2,000 more.
Right.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Councilmember Richards?
Ron, I stopped by where the demo machine, similar exact duplicate of what you're going to purchase, was being operated on. I mean, it was operating, digging a sewer line connection, looked like, and putting a clean out in. I took some pictures with my cell phone camera, and I asked some questions, okay, and talked to the operator there. And I asked some specific questions about the stabilizers. How did he like the stabilizers as improved from the previous backhoe? And he said, these are wonderful. They go out wider, plus they flip out to go in soft ground or ice, okay, which the other ones didn't. And I asked him about the boom, okay, and 14 feet is the same as what he had on the other one.
Correct.
And the buckets and the extension, he indicated to me that we've got $45,000 in attachments already that are adaptable to this machine. In other words, the demo is right here today, okay? Identical one is what we're buying, okay?
It's close to identical.
Okay.
There are some things that are on that machine, but they were allowing us so that we could test it out, make sure that's exactly what we were looking at.
Yeah, well, I'm very impressed with Caterpillar, okay, and I'm very impressed. I asked him specifically, what's your opinion of being able to get $18,000 for this? And he says, it's a dream come true. He would never dream that we could get more than 8 to 10. And here we got an offer for $18,000 for a trade-in on the old backhoe on the John Deere, okay? And so I can see nothing but blue skies ahead with getting that machine, because you're talking about the Cadillac of the industry in backhoes, okay, people? The biggest, the best, the most durable, the longest lasting, 36 months warranty.
Actually, it's a 84-month engine, powertrain, hydraulic system on that one, which was superior to the other machine we looked at.
7 years, that's awesome.
It is.
Anyway, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. This is a tremendous opportunity for a durable machine. Costs a little more money, okay, but we're going to have long-term durability with this particular backhoe and performance. Oh, the sound was smooth. Engine, everything.
It's a very nice machine.
Yeah.
Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Is it in here?
I think before we take a vote, we should probably resolve the conflict of interest issue that's been proposed or brought up. The purchase, may I continue, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
The purchase of this backhoe is from CAT,
Yes.
okay? And that is where your wife works?
Yeah, she works for a dealership, yeah.
Does she work for the dealership in which this vehicle is being purchased from? The
It's
backhoe from?
part of the corporation, yeah.
Okay. I'm just telling you what I would do. What I would do is disqualify myself from the vote.
Okay, well, if you guys vote that I should recuse myself, I will.
All right, so let's
vote.
Let's take a quick vote. Do we want to do a roll call on it?
Well, I don't care.
All right, so
Let's go
Councilmember
with
Parisian?
casual.
I think you should vote. I think you should be a part of this.
We got to make
I
a
don't
motion.
see, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Tim, I don't see a financial interest in this for Councilman Kibble or his wife, but do you, off the cuff, as our city attorney, do you see any potential conflict of
Well,
interest?
I was looking to, I'm not sure I have the ethics ordinance handy. I was hoping to review that and determine, I don't remember off the top of my head what the procedures for determining a conflict. I thought it referenced a vote, but I may be confusing it
I thought it was a
with something else.
supermajority.
Pardon?
I thought it was a supermajority that had to be in favor.
Well, I don't have the ordinance in front of me, so I can't speak to what it says without reviewing it first.
But
Mr. Mayor?
You know,
either
it's
way-
sort of incidental. How about I just recuse myself and just get rid of all the nonsense?
That's perfectly fine,
Simplify
That's a
Councilmember.
the
good
thing.
deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chief Collins, go ahead.
Doesn't matter now, I have
Okay.
the ordinance here, I could have provided it to the city attorney.
Thank you. Okay, so do we have a motion on the table?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll make a motion. Okay. We agree to purchase, pre-approved purchase.
No, sorry, I was just looking at suggested motions.
Oh, okay, I'm reading it wrong.
Right down there.
Okay. To approve, pre-approved purchase of backhoe from CAT to lock in the $2,000 savings, prior to increased steel tariff pricing, and approve the total cost of the backhoe with trade-in at $89,448.65. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Tim?
If I could just make a point, this is coming out of a line item for the 18-19 budget, is that my understanding?
Mhm.
And this will be brought back to council in the new fiscal year?
No, I was not looking for that, but we can do that if that's the direction we'd like to take.
Because
Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
Clarification on the motion. Is the motion that is being made, is it the intent of council that the purchase is to be evidenced by a letter of intent to purchase, and then DPW will need to come back for final approval at the first meeting in July? So is that what the motion is about?
It's not my intent.
I don't know.
Or is it an actual,
Tim, I don't know.
or is it the actual purchase that is being approved, and that comes from a budget that is not in effect yet?
Mr. Wellham.
Mayor, I believe Councilmember Kurtzweiler has identified a concern is, I think today's motion, I think, can reflect some intent or acknowledgement that there is a line item or a budget entry for this machine after July 1. I don't think today you can authorize a payment and a purchase from a budget that is not effective until July 1, unless you somehow structure that motion to address the timing concern, because we are in May 29, the budget doesn't become effective until July 1. If it's an acknowledgement, such as a letter of intent, then it will be brought back, or if it's not effective until,
Yeah, that seems the easiest vehicle, is just to say this is relegated to fiscal 2018, 2019's budget.
So not effective until July 1st.
Correct.
Can we just incorporate that language into the motion,
so you're not going to get you're not going to make a payment or receive an invoice
No.
for payment prior to July
Right.
1.
Correct.
Okay, do I amend the motion, or do I pass to somebody else to make a new motion, Tim?
Steve, go ahead.
Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I think the way Councilmember Kurtzwell worded it was fine. I mean, what we're looking for here is recognition that we're going to have a pre-approved letter of intent that we can submit to Caterpillar, verifying that we're going to issue a purchase order come July 1st for this piece of equipment, that they know we're well-intentioned to purchase it, but we are not issuing a purchase order. We are not buying the piece of equipment. We're not going to take delivery of the piece of equipment until the budget is in effect July 1st.
Right.
Or the first day of business, whatever it is in July. So I believe the motion, actually, the way Councilmember Kurtzwell worded it was terrific, so.
No, but she
But then
wasn't.
we have to come back in July and make another,
And that's fine. We'd have to do that just to get the purchase order generated. And, you know, whatever the first meeting is, at least the people at CAT would know that we are well-intentioned to take that piece of equipment. We just have the mechanics of dealing with the budget.
Okay, no problem there.
Councilmember Parisian.
Wouldn't it just be easier to put in effective July 1st? Just simple language? Like, do we have to do?
I will take your recommendation, whichever way you would like to go.
I'm looking for the easiest way to make this, to accommodate you.
The easiest way for me is not to come back.
There we
here.
go. So then let's just put, so based upon that, I think it would just be more effective and efficient to just plug into the motion, let's amend the motion, if council is agreeable, to include in the language not effective until July 1st, and then you can make whatever moves you need to make.
That's
And
fine
then you
with
don't
me.
have to come back to council, but that's just one voice saying that, so whatever you want to do.
if CAT's okay with a post-dated check, that shouldn't be an issue. I mean, that's essentially what
We
this
won't even take
becomes.
possession until after July
Yeah.
1. So,
Post-dated checks are illegal.
Yes, that is.
Councilmember Walton.
I'd like to hear what Attorney
Tim.
Wilhelm has to say.
I tend to be a little conservative on these things. I think it ought to be brought back in your budget and purchase the machine then. If you take care of giving some expression of your intent to do so, that should be sufficient. And if it's not, we can address that.
Yeah, I agree.
No, that's not a big deal.
Yeah, sorry, Ron, we're going to have
that's
to
okay.
have you come
I
back
don't-
probably.
I'm not comfortable
It's
with
fine.
the idea of post-dating a purchase
No,
action.
I agree.
for
No,
the
don't
future
post
budget.
date
fine.
anything. No, don't post date it.
Okay, so Councilmember Richards, would you be willing to amend your motion?
I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay.
I'll withdraw my motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Kurtzwell, please.
I'd like to move to provide pre-approval as evidenced by a letter of intent to purchase from CAT a certain backhoe, which is being budgeted in the 2018-2019 budget, which will come into effect July 1st.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Ron.
Okay, thank you.
How do we put it in our notes? What do we say?
New business number 7,
Okay, all right.
consider approval of cost for pump rebuild. Recommendation on this agenda note is to approve cost to rebuild the central effluent pump by Kennedy Industries. We have adequate funds available in the current budget under line item 592-557-931, building and equipment maintenance to make this purchase.
Correct.
Does anyone have any questions for Ron?
No, I thought all this made perfect sense,
Okay.
and with that, I'd like to make the motion that we approve the cost of $16,460 to rebuild the central effluent pump by Kennedy Industries.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thanks for coming out, Ron.
Cheesy joke.
New business number 8, consider approval of vehicle purchase for fire department.
Oh,
Recommendation is to approve the requested vehicle purchase under the Oakland County bid.
So this puts me in the same boat as Ron.
Okay.
I'm on the coattails of the police department. I just want to be clear. We're buying 3 vehicles from the same dealer. It takes 120 days to build it. So we were asking for the right to begin the build to take possession in August. I have no problem withdrawing my item. I was kind of hoping the chief would go first so we could beat up on him. But that's where we're at.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Chief Vogel?
No.
No, I guess not.
No, hang on. Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
Well, we could do the same thing for you. We could provide a letter of intent that the Ford Interceptor is budgeted and will be available for purchase after July 1st.
Right, would it be
So-
August? We'd come back in August when we heard it's in
Yeah.
built? Okay.
And then you just come back then, but if you want a letter of intent, that
Well, I'm not sure what we want, Chief. Do you know? We want the right just to begin the build, right? We don't have to take possession.
Mr. Mayor,
Chief Collins.
the dealerships in the past have only needed to get a verbal order placed with them to start the process
Which is
of building the
non-binding.
vehicles. It does take so long to get them that will be well into the next budget before we would write the purchase order or expend the funds. So to be on the safe side, I think, as Councilmember Kurzweil suggests, council authorizing letter of intent would be great, but I don't think it will be necessary with these dealers under the Oakland County bid.
Thank you for the clarification. Does anyone have any questions?
this is on the Oakland County contract?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I mean, that seems like that should be good enough for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've already asked my questions to Mike, and they're pretty well cleared up. I hope we can get the fire higher fire color
Well,
red.
I'm pretty comfortable with the fire red that we picked. I'm not sure the $1,000 additional cost would be worth it. As for the towing hitch, we already have a vehicle with a towing hitch.
Yeah.
That was another expense that I trimmed it. I thought, I
Yeah.
didn't think it was necessary.
Well, we're saving a ton of money on mileage compared
And
to what
gas.
you've got. I
Right.
figured if we're saving at least over $1,000 over a 6-year period on the mileage, we might as well have the brighter red color and the towing hitch, okay?
Well, I'm very comfortable. It matched the
Yeah.
vehicle you all bought 2 years ago,
Yeah,
the fire truck, so I'm comfortable with the red.
okay.
So you want a motion for letter of intent?
Please.
Okay. I make the motion that we approve the letter of intent for one 2018 Ford Interceptor utility all-wheel drive vehicle from Gorno Ford under the Oakland County bid at a cost of $32,395 to be paid in the 2018-2019 budget cycle.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. New business number 9, consider approval of vehicle purchase for police department. Sounds like it's the same song and dance, folks.
Mr. Mayor, these are the 2 vehicles that were discussed at the budget workshops. One's a replacement for the police vehicle that was totaled. The other is a replacement for the oldest vehicle in our fleet, and the letter of intent would be very acceptable to the dealer.
Thank you.
Make a motion that we approve the letter of intent for 2 2018 Ford Police Interceptor utility all-wheel drive vehicles from Gorno Ford under the Oakland County bid at a cost of $55,944 to be paid out of the 2018-2019 budget cycle.
Question.
I think we had a 2-way tie for second there.
I'll pass.
Okay. We'll give it to Councilmember Richards on that one.
Okay, I have a question.
It's a photo finish.
Right. Go ahead, Carl, or Councilmember
Okay,
Richards.
am I okay to give a question now? Did you?
Yeah.
You clear? Okay. for the agreed-to price, we're talking about, okay, we're talking about, on the last page here, 50, I circled it with red, $62,000 and $8.36 for both vehicles.
On
Am I
which
correct
page?
in this?
On which page, Carl?
Page, doesn't say, it just says Chris Sobeck. I think it's 2 from the end. No, it's 3 from the end. Heinz Park Ford.
And we're approving the one from Cornell.
Oh, we're proving Gorono.
Yes.
Okay.
Gorno, right.
Then that's not the valid price for this deal.
No, that, we had to get 3 bids, so we got bids
Okay,
from
well,
the Oakland County bid, the Macomb County bid, and Heinz Park Ford, and obviously we went for the lowest bid.
Right.
of course, okay. Am I free to ask a couple other questions
Go
here?
ahead, Carl.
Okay. I've checked with somebody else about the engines here. You're buying a V6, okay, 3.7 liter engine in both vehicles.
Right.
Okay. Hopefully, with luck, you'll have the performance you need for police vehicles, okay, and they will give you enough durability. But it's mutually agreed with other mechanics that I have talked to that Ford police vehicles, you have a very nice interior. That's what you're paying for in the package, okay? You're paying for the interior. But you get more durability with Chevy police cars for longer distance. Has anybody ever explored the difference in price? They would be more expensive than
Mr. Mayor?
Ford products.
Chief Collins?
Yes, the Tahoes are significantly more expensive. I'm talking approximately $10,000.
Okay, I'm not complaining, I'm just
per vehicle.
making, entering the record that at this point in time, when we do this, I brought it up that Chevys are more expensive, but they last longer than Fords. Okay? That's it.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember Richards. Do we have a motion? Do we have a
Yeah,
motion?
and seconded, yeah.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. New business number 10, consider approval of first reading of ordinance to repeal the City of South Lyon Code of Ordinances, Section 58-53, disturbance in public place or lawful public meeting, and adopting a new Section 58-53, interference with conduct of business, interference with meetings of a public body. The recommendation is to approve the first reading.
I mean, this accounts for everything that we talked to earlier in the meeting, so.
Does anyone have any other questions for Matt?
I'm making the motion that we approve the first reading of the ordinance to repeal the City of South Lyon Code of Ordinances, Section 58-53, disturbance in business or public place or of lawful meeting, and adopting a new Section 58-53, interference with conduct of business, interference with meetings of the public body.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thank you again, Matt.
Blah, blah, blah.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank
New
you.
business number 11, consider approval of 3-year contract with Johnson Rosati Law Firm.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Willem?
So in the agenda note, I've outlined, I worked with Chief Collins to try and get the council at least the basic terms for a proposal. And those are outlined in the agenda note. You've also been provided with a summary of what the current terms are and how each of those moving parts changes. I also provided council with some additional kind of historical numbers on your invoices, the number of hours, whether you've met, whether I have worked the 80 hours or not, and so forth. And I got to say, when I saw the numbers, there was a period of time in 2007 where the hours went way down. I think that, as I recall, there was a very strong attempt to try and keep the attorney bills down at that point in time. But other than that, you are usually significantly over the 80-hour mark. And if you want additional information, I can certainly provide anything you're interested in. But it may take me just a little bit of time to work with my office manager and get that information.
Councilmember Parisian, go ahead. Glenn, I'll get you next.
I think we should quickly make the motion before you change your mind.
Councilmember Kibble, do you have anything?
I think you're right. That was sort of like the witch hunt year with some of those hours being cut back like that. I'm grateful that you put this package, whole package together. When you look at the fact that Johnson Rosati hadn't done the escalation in the last 2 years that they, by contract, had the right to have done, so moving up to that 150 an hour for anything over retainer is going to end up making sense. And the just $5 extra for the labor hours. I'm grateful for that too. So it could have been much worse. And I like the idea that hopefully with a new city manager, you'll end up having to just tend to your affairs. You won't have to try to assist in running the city.
Well, I think the idea, if I can interrupt, that would be to see those hours level out.
Well, that was my point, essentially, that we've had an awful lot of roller coaster action going on for emergency events that were simply drawn by the fact that we didn't have any leadership. And so I'm grateful for your stepping in. And I know that I was a little bit overly harsh at our last meeting, and I hadn't appropriately put that package into place in my mind for how much influence that had on what your ability to actually put out product on a timely manner had been, simply because you were inundated with an awful lot of things that you really shouldn't have had any role in. So I apologize for that comment at our last meeting, and I wanted to thank you for your stepping up to the plate when it wasn't necessarily your role. So with that, unless anybody else has anything else, I'd like to make a motion.
I do.
Okay.
Well,
you can still make the motion.
I can make the motion to approve the city retainer agreement between the City of South Lyon and Johnson Rosati, Schultz, and Jopek for the term commencing July 1, 2018 and ending July 30, 2018. Oh, this is the 1 year.
That should be 20.
Yeah, 20.
My copy says 2021.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Don't pull a fast one.
I was moving pretty quickly.
Yeah, okay, so 2021, correct?
Yep.
Yes, all right. Incorporating the proposal rates and terms presented above, and authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and executive.
No, that's
Yeah, it should be to execute the agreement, subject to final review and revisions acceptable to the interim city manager and city attorney.
Councilmember Kurtzwell, I know you had something to add. Go ahead.
Tim, I just wanted to thank you. Hang in there. We're only just maybe about 65 days out, and there'll be somebody new in here. It's tough being HR, and I think you've done a good job at it. It's not an easy position to be in, but I think you've done a good job balancing the balls and keeping everything up in the air and not letting anything drop. So thank you so much.
Councilmember Richards, go ahead.
Tim, question. As I'm reading this, as it says in the amendment, this agreement can be amended or terminated between both parties, if both parties mutually agree, in 60 days after, or any period of time of notification of 60 days. Is that what that says in here?
Yes, this can be terminated by either side on, the appropriate time period and advance written notice.
Those are the same terms as the last contract, correct?
Right, and that last phrase in the proposed motion is simply to make sure, I tried to get this in the packet by Thursday. I did not have time to go through and do a comprehensive review of the agreement to see what else might change, or if there were any, mistakes that might have been missed the first time around. So that's simply to allow Chief and I, if it's authorized, to make sure we make any final adjustments based on those terms, and clean up any small issues.
Thank you, Tim. We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a
I
second?
will second it.
Thank you, Councilmember Walton. Motion on the floor, seconded by Councilmember Walton. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. And thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll now move on to the budget. Does anyone have anything for budget this week?
Just a quick comment.
Okay, go ahead. Councilmember Parisian.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who helped work on the budget. It was so much smoother than it's ever been before. And thank you to Lori, thank you to our staff, thank you to, I believe it was Brian,
Yes.
and his staff. So thanks to everyone who was involved for making the process smooth and efficient. Thank you.
I second that.
Right.
That was very nice.
It's so much less stressful.
All right, if no one has anything else for budget, we'll move on to the manager's report. Chief Collins?
Well, I appear to have extra time tonight, so it's a good thing. Item number one for me is I received notification from Amy Allen, the Director of South Lyon Area Recreation Authority, that it is their intention to vacate the city building that they are currently occupying on Friday, June 15th. They'll be paying rent through the end of the month. So if council has, or anyone else has any intentions for that building, it would be a good time to let those be known, and we could start looking for a new tenant or whatever other direction council might wish to give. My next item is I received communication from Attorney Tom Fleury of the Keller-Toma Law Firm. He was contacted by the Michigan Department of Civil Rights, the investigator for them in the Closey matter, had new information regarding a revised demand/settlement proposal. Mr. Fleury will be providing attorney-client privileged communication to council and should be ready for a closed session discussion at the June 11th meeting. Mr. Fleury is also working on a proposal for providing training to city officials and employees. Next item, the calendar on the city website now includes events for the Historic Village and the chapel. The wedding planner and the Historical Society president have been given logins and have the ability to add items there. City Hall staff has been given direction to coordinate that just a little better than has been done in the past. So hopefully we will now have better information on the city website calendar and avoid any potential conflicts. Quick announcement, the citywide garage sale that got rained out last month has been rescheduled in an effort to avoid Father's Day. It's planned for Thursday, May 31st, that's this Thursday, through Sunday, June 3rd. No permits are required for garage sales for that 4-day period, and unfortunately I can make no guarantees as to rain or no rain.
That weather, it's in Alabama now.
Saturday, June 2nd, the Longevity 5K Walk Run will take place from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the McCaddy Park Pavilion. That's typically a good event, and I encourage everyone that is at all interested in walking or running to participate. Yeah, save that page for last. With respect to the city manager search, I've been working very closely and very diligently with Mr. James Petrino, the Vice President of govhr.com. We're actually slightly ahead of schedule on that. The recruitment brochure has been distributed to council. It looks very good. We had a lot of high-quality photographs on that. The deadline now for applications is July 5th, so that might even shorten that time frame to getting me back to the police department and getting an experienced and trained manager in place in the corner office at City Hall. And my final item, on a sad note, council certainly is aware, I'm not sure the entire South Lyon community is aware of the passing of former council member Harvey Weedell. I have been advised of funeral arrangements. Visitation will be at Phillips Funeral Home Wednesday, May 30th from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. with the funeral scheduled on Thursday, May 31st at 11 a.m. Again, that's at Phillips Funeral Home.
Thank you, Chief. Councilmember Kurtzwell, you had something for Chief Collins?
I had a couple of questions. What was the issue over at South Ridge that you attended? You had a meeting with the HOA?
We sent a representative to the HOA at the request of the Homeowners Association. That was simply to be available to tell the residents what we would and would not do regarding the replacement of pipes in all of the units.
So is the city partaking in that restorative project?
We're not. The purpose of attending that meeting was in fact to convey that neither the city nor the police department, unless a court order were specifically issued, would take part in the enforcement of their condominium bylaws.
Yeah, I guess I don't understand the issue. Their bylaws get enforced through an injunction through a civil procedure. They hire an attorney. The attorney what are they trying to enforce? Why was the city brought in? Because that's a private development.
And that's what they were told. They were just looking to see what the city and the police department would and would not do.
But what's the enforcement issue? I don't understand.
The potential issue was they had noticed that some condominium unit owners would possibly deny the work crews access to the units to be able to make the piping repairs.
Okay. Next, what is moving with respect to Mike Bovin? What is your plan? Are you interviewing? Are you not interviewing? Because I had a couple comments on that. And I don't know if council wants to address this or whatever, but my observation was, and still is, that a combined position of DPW and sewer and water is not necessarily in the city's best interest. Because and I understand why it happened, you combined the position maybe 10 years ago, so a certain individual could get a raise. I understand it was about a $10,000 raise, as I was told. The problem with a combined position is that when that individual vacates for whatever reason, the city is left somewhat vulnerable from a sewer, water, and infrastructure standpoint. And actually, the city had a pretty good business model prior to the merging, where there was a separate superintendent for sewer and water, and then a separate superintendent for DPW. I think it was Steve Renwick that was retiring, and so I guess the decision was made to combine the position at that point. And I think we may have been in that recession, so it may have been in 2008 or something. So there may have been a cost savings motivator also. But as I watched that over the years, it was clear to me that no one individual can devote 100% of their time to each of those departments. So those departments, in some aspects, were attended to 50% of the time. whether that was from a management standpoint or whether it was from a facility improvement standpoint or whatever. No one person can donate or dedicate all that time to both departments. And so, to me, it just made sense that the two departments had their own department heads. I just think it provides a little bit more stability in the departments. It clearly provides stability in the city. And I look at it, and it almost appears that there may be one individual, possibly two individuals, that if you went back to the old business model, that could potentially be put in positions, maybe, depending on what else is out there, for promotions. So I just kind of wanted to see where you were at. Are you working under the model where it's still a combined position, or are you willing to take a look at moving back to where the city was 10 years ago with two department heads? The water department and sewer department would be paid out of enterprise funds, so that salary would not be affected at all out of the general fund. Additionally, council always has the option, if funds were short in the sewer and water department, of raising the administrative fee. That would, on our utility bills, that would generate about $60,000 that could go towards that salary. So you would be able to buffer the salary in sewer and water, and the DPW salary would come out of the general fund, and it would be no effect at all because you're dropping the combined position. So I'm just tossing it out there for discussion. I don't know where you're at on it, and I just sort of wanted to find out where you're going.
Chief Collins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first question that I heard from Councilmember Kurzweil was addressed in my weekly report to council. Their very first item, since Superintendent Bovin left, I have contracted with Mr. Anthony Dawson of Highland Treatment Incorporated to serve as the interim licensed wastewater treatment plant operator and signer for all required official documents. Mr. Dawson has done that job for us before. He did it upon the retirement of Bob Martin up until we filled that position with Mr. Bovin. Mr. Dawson can be kept in that position until a replacement or replacements can be hired. The longer term answer to the second question that I heard from Councilmember Kurzweil is that my intention is to continue with Highland Treatment Incorporated until such time as the permanent city manager is in place, and then let council and the new manager make a decision as to either hiring a new combination superintendent for both departments or to hire two superintendents.
Thank you for that update.
Yeah, that's a good decision. I think that takes a lot of pressure off, and I was hoping that was going to be the answer. I'm just throwing it out there for discussion. I didn't know how far you were going at looking at replacements, but I'm glad to see that you're putting a hold on it and waiting for a professional city manager to get in here and work with that. After all, it's going to be their city to work with their employees and give them an opportunity, him or her, an opportunity to pick some employees that they're going to be spending some time with. So, okay, good. That answers it.
Councilmember Kivel?
Just to kind of extract a little bit more out of that whole thing, though, since it's been characterized as they are only doing at best 50% of the time working in either of those roles. At the same time, you have the benefit of you have one leadership person that's coordinating efforts from both departments to be able to tackle anything that's more comprehensive across the city. So it's not always a downside, to say nothing of the fact that although there are financial vehicles that we can escalate, we can end up pulling money essentially from our residents and businesses to cover the expense of having two separate entities running those separate offices, it's not a free thing. So just because we have the ability to reach into our residents' pockets to grab more money doesn't mean that we necessarily should. If we can get the same circumstance that we had with either Bob Martin or Steve, where they're essentially running both operations simultaneously, or Lyndon, I like the idea of one guy kind of being the masthead of both of those, having the oversight over both departments, if they're capable and qualified. I mean, it'll end up being a roll of the dice whether or not we can identify somebody that has the skill sets that are necessary to manage both of those departments effectively. So, and that'll be, in my view, that'll be the most important question that needs to be answered.
Councilmember Parisian?
I'm going to change the subject. Can we go back to the citywide garage sale really quick?
Certainly.
Because it's so late, I don't know if anybody knows about it. Can we just make sure, and I'm sure you'll do this because you are incredibly professional. I just want to make sure that it's posted on Facebook, it's posted on the website, and that we just spread the word as quickly as possible because it's only a couple days away. Actually, what's today, the 29th? 2 days away.
It's on the city website.
Awesome.
And I will defer to the city clerk to enumerate the other places that have been covered, but we have been making an effort to publicize.
Thank you.
I do know it's posted at City Hall also.
Okay, so Rich Perry, if you're listening.
Perhaps Lisa can enlighten us.
Okay.
Lisa,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
We actually have it posted in 2 different places at City Hall. It's on our website in the calendar and on the first page as soon as you pull it up. Mayor Pelchat added it to his Facebook, which then I know a lot of people shared because my aunt shared it. Over the weekend.
That's great. Okay, thank
And,
you.
The Oakland Press was going to put a little blurb about it in their paper as well as Hometown Life.
Thank you. That's exactly what I needed to know.
To get the word out, sometimes it's kind of hard to do.
I'm just glad we're having a redo, so I appreciate it.
To partner with that, can we put it on the electronic sign?
I'm working on that. I'm having a couple issues. Okay. I can't quite my computer won't communicate with the sign. I'm going to go try again in the morning.
Okay.
Thanks for trying.
I just wanted to ask one more thing with the calendar. All the different groups that have access to be able to impose information on the calendar, is there a request that they email everybody else? Like, is everybody copied when an entry is made? Or do they simply look at the calendar and find out, okay, it's already booked, kind of a deal?
Well, Lisa would know the exact mechanics. I'm not aware that they have to email around. The people with logins put the item on the calendar, and then if somebody goes to put something on that may or may not be a conflict, at least we would be aware of it at City Hall when the second person tried to make the entry.
Do you guys have anything set up to coordinate?
No, actually, this is the first week we've done that.
Yeah, okay.
Linda Ross went in over the weekend and put in some historical events. Kelly's been putting in the wedding events, so whoever goes to that day last will see it. But we really don't have a lot of issues with things overlapping.
Okay.
But I know occasionally something will, but I think this will help.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. And is that it for the manager's report, Chief?
That is it, sir.
Okay, great. We'll move on to council comments. Glenn, why don't you go ahead and start us tonight?
Okay. First off, I wanted to say last Wednesday, the car show, we had terrific weather. It was a huge show, very well attended, and I'm really impressed by the Lake Street cruise-in folks because they've had enough groups and varied groups in there. I was still seeing vehicles. I mean, we've been doing this for a couple of years now and seeing new vehicles at every show that I haven't seen before. I'm really impressed because they're putting hundreds of cars in each of those shows. So to have a good handful to 20 cars that hadn't been seen before is really a thrill for me. So I'm really grateful for all of that effort, and hopefully we'll end up enjoying the same level of weather that show had. The Memorial Day parade yesterday was just terrific. We had caught a break with weather on that as well, and so that worked out really well. I have to say that Chief had mentioned the passing of Harvey Waddell, and Probably the only disappointment that I had at the parade was the fact that I was holding out hope that he might end up rallying where he could have been on the American Legion wagon or in a vehicle to participate in the parade, and unfortunately for everybody, it hadn't worked out. I did want to end up just making the comment that the city's lost a good friend, as have all that had known him. Harvey and I served on city council together for 12 years, and he could be counted on to be reasonable and solid in his judgment regarding city business. He was smart, experienced, friendly, caring, and he was just a nice guy to talk to and get to know. My family and my sympathies go out to Harvey's family, along with the knowledge that he'll be missed, which is one hallmark of life, of a life well lived. So, rest in peace, Sir Harvey. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Yes, I would like to thank Plant Moran, Lori, and Brian for all the work that they did on the budget. These individuals stayed on this budget from January until really tonight. I was still talking budget items with Lori and Brian in the back of the room. I think what this does evidence clearly is that the next city manager does need to have some strong financial skills coming into the position. Unfortunately, we did not have those skills in-house this year, and maybe they've been lacking for a while. But clearly, I'm glad that council moved forward and had the wisdom to understand that there was a skill set lacking in the budget process and did the right thing and got Plant Moran in here, which in my view clearly made a difference. As to my vote tonight in not voting for the budget, it was because for 2 years now, and I will continue as long as I sit on council, is to continue to advocate for a plan on dealing with the unfunded pension liability that the city faces. There was no plan. There was nothing in the budget. And even though this budget pays the bills, it is not a planning document for future financial issues, nor does it solve some of the systemic problems that the city has had financially over the past decade. So that is why I did not vote for the budget. I still think it's lacking some components, but it has done a good job in terms of paying the bills. Next, I attended the South Lyon Area Assistance Awards banquet that was held at St. Joseph's Church. We had close to 250 individuals that were there, parents and children that were in the grade schools and the high schools that were receiving awards. It was just a wonderful, wonderful event. The dignitaries that were there, Lyon Township was well represented. The school district was well represented. And I clearly want to send a thank you to the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, who was there in full force. They were there congratulating each of those children in the line, thanking them for their effort and all their hard work that they have done in the past year. So congratulations to all those students. Your parents are very proud of you, and thank you for the hard work that you've done. Friday night at Atkinson's Park, I can hardly wait to go. Jim Chuck has got me sort of curious as to how a kite flies at night. So there is going to be a first ever night kite flying event over in Lyon Township, and that's Friday night, and they do it with LED lights. So I'm very anxious to see exactly how that works out. And also, from my husband and I, we extend sympathies for the loss of Harvey Waddell. I think also it's important to keep the family in prayers and memories during the next year, especially the spouse and the children, because they will be facing their first Father's Day without him, their first Thanksgiving and Christmas. I lost a parent about a year and a half ago, and the rough days are coming. So pray for their comfort and their strength, and he was a good person, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kennedy?
Thank you. At the last city council meeting, Councilmember Kurtzwell asked if I would sit down with Mike Boven, the utility superintendent, and discuss his decision to resign. Yeah. After reviewing the background data and information, I then met with Mike and discussed his decision with him. The results of my research and discussions were provided to the interim city manager, who in turn made the decision not to extend a counteroffer to him. As a side note, I have found the counteroffers are usually only a short-term fix at best, and rarely a long-term solution. Making a counteroffer typically results in the employee feeling he didn't receive adequate compensation when they were hired, or that they can create a bidding war going forward by again threatening to resign and receiving more money. And finally, it creates dissent among the other employees who observe this behavior and feel less valued and under-recognized as a result. Statistically, 80% of those individuals who accept a counteroffer will leave that position within 6 months, and 90% leave within 1 year. On another note, the results of the survey for the city manager selection have been posted on the city's website. I want to thank all of the people who participated in the survey, and I'd encourage all of the residents to review the results that the survey provided. Again, it's available on the city's website. You can see what the responses were and what the qualities are that we're looking for in a new city manager. And as has been mentioned, we lost a longtime member of our community this week. Councilmember Harvey Waddell passed away on Saturday evening, and as many of you know, Harvey was a longtime member of the City Council who tirelessly worked to improve our city for the benefit of all its residents. He was a husband, a father, a grandfather, a veteran, a neighbor, and a friend who will be deeply missed. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family during this difficult time. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Richards.
Yes, I wish to first and foremost express ditto of Mr. Councilman Kennedy's thoughts regarding Harvey Waddell. I knew him briefly. I was thoroughly impressed with the man and his decorum and his ability to talk to people and express an issue and not get flustered under a tense situation, okay? And I remember him marching in the parade for many years, okay, the Memorial Day parade, which we just had, and being involved with the ceremonies up at the cemetery. And my best wishes, because I've been through it all, for his family in the future as these rough times are ahead for them, okay, with the loss of their leader. That's all there is to it. Okay, so moving on. Like I said earlier, I stopped by the 101 Lafayette Street location, and I'm very impressed with what they're doing, and I hope, wish them continued success. The garage sale coming up, most of my leftover, just a word to the public, most of my leftover stuff is all going to the Green Oak Township Historical Society. Most of it. I'm keeping a few things for one-day showing at my place. But I've supported that group, and we work closely with them in the Historical Society from time to time. The new farmers market setup, okay, I'm not a farmers market patron as a rule, and I have no particular perspectives or, I don't know, preferences. I've heard other people tell me that they complain about the aesthetics of the way it looks. Well, I think it's a work in progress. I don't think it's a done deal completely that is going to stay that way. Other people have mentioned that they would like to see a movable fence that would cover the holes when it's not being used as it sits right now with the chain link fence in front of it. Okay, all I can tell you is my conscious mind doesn't work on aesthetics for parking lots, but there has been some complaints registered to me about it, and I hope that can be resolved. The new backhoe we're going to be getting, I'm all enthused about it. It'll be one of the greatest things saving money for us in the long run. Okay, this past week, there was over 100 children in our program at the Historic Village from the school. The school kids from, I believe, Bartlett Elementary, third, fourth graders mostly, over the 4 days that we were open to the school children coming into the village over there. And it was a big success, and everybody was very happy with it. I see we've got more people on the Housing Commission than just one, so we'll hopefully have a good start there. Our donated tree, our special tree deal, I mentioned council comments the last meeting, was smashed by a runaway car, and the Catholic Church sign was wiped out also. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but the tree that they planted, donation tree, okay, we talked about it. Anyway, it's gone. It was all wiped out, and the sign was gone too. Okay, and it was an automobile accident. I hope they get settled with that and we can get another replacement. If there's no, Mr. Collins, if there's no action on the Slera building, I don't know, you probably won't be here as city manager for the length of time, but would you recommend that the city sell the site, okay? Unload it, okay? Get rid of it. Is it be to our benefit to get rid of it rather than hang on to an empty building if you can't find a tenant? Because there's a lot of vacancies in town. And just put that out to you. Maybe you could look into that, later on. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councilmember Richards. Councilmember Parisian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I first wanted to say thank you to the volunteers who decided to come out and be on a committee, whether it's the Housing Commission, ZBA, ethics, whatever it might be. We still need volunteers. I say it every meeting. If you know people, spread the word. We need to fill commissions, we need to fill committees, we need to fill boards. Thank you for those who have stepped up in the community. Secondly, the MS Bake Sale was such a success. It's going to happen again. It's going to be this Saturday, June 2nd at Big B Coffee in South Lyon from 10 a.m. to 5. So come prepared to get some baked goods. And also, thoughts and prayers go out to the young man who passed away last week at the tragic accident at Pontiac Trail 11 Mile. It was a construction accident. Again, don't want to forget about the gentleman who passed as well. So thoughts and prayers go out to his family. And lastly, Harvey Waddell, I can't say enough wonderful things about the man. When I, prior to getting onto council, would sit and watch the meetings, I always thought to myself, I want to be like him. He was very stoic. He didn't speak unless he needed to. And when he did speak, it was either something that was incredibly important or he was guiding council in a direction that was only going to benefit the city. So everything he said, everything he did was very deliberate, and he was beyond professional. He was a devoted council member, devoted family man, and dedicated public servant. So thank you to Harvey, and rest in peace. Thoughts go out to his family. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Walton.
I have the same sentiment. I'd like to and keep Harvey's family and friends in my thoughts and prayers. I know that there's going to be a lot of days and a lot of tears and a lot of happy thoughts that come along with that. So I think everybody should certainly celebrate his life. And also, I just want to thank Bob Donahue in regards to the holiday gift guide. I think that's an excellent idea, and I was looking through this little packet he provided us, and I'm super excited about having a packet that goes out with just our local stores and highlighting a few special items there. So really looking forward to that. Other than that, I want to wish everyone have a good night.
Thank you. Really quickly, I'll try and make this brief. Had an amazing day yesterday at the Memorial Day ceremonies. I want to thank the American Legion, the VFW, and Dana Johnston. She's been a part of that parade for 40 years. I still just can't believe that. What a great member of our community. I can remember her and Craig being our medics at Panthers back when I was a kid. And to think that she was working on that parade then, and they did a fantastic job yesterday. It was a little toasty outside, but we had an incredible turnout. And just something that I noticed yesterday is people coming from out of town to that because their towns aren't doing it anymore. And so I love the fact that our community realizes the importance of that and make sure that we do it right and do it big for our fallen veterans on Memorial Day. I had planned to share a story about Mr. Waddell's passing, but I just don't think I can get through it here tonight. So the world in America lost an American hero, and my thoughts and prayers go out to his family as well. So with that, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.